joining our webinar this morning. Today we are going to talk about unlocking productivity, harnessing the power of Microsoft Copilot. I'm Mark Stamper. I am the head of consulting and product for digital workplaces at Igloo, and joining me today I have my colleague Stuart Potter, who is our creative director, and Ian Parker-Strack, who is our head of customer success and marketing. Good morning, guys.
Hey, Mark.
Morning.
Well, bright and breezy on a little bit of a grey Thursday morning in London.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this morning we are going to be talking about Copilot. AI has been a real hot topic for around the last 18 months or so, with the meteoric rise of tools like ChatGPT and many others, which some of you may already have used. You've all heard about Copilot, which is exactly why you're here, how it uses the power of AI against the information that sits within Microsoft 365. We've been testing Copilot for a few months now, Stuart.
Round about that, yeah, I would say.
And today we're kind of going to tell you all about it. So, format for today, we're going to talk and present for around 45 minutes or so. We will have time for questions at the end. During the presentation, there are a few kind of natural breaks as we move from one topic to the other. So Ian's going to be keeping an eye on questions. If you do have questions, just pop them into the chat box. Ian will be monitoring those, and he will let Stuart and I know as and when they come up. Okay, on to the agenda. So we have our introduction to Microsoft Copilot, the impact of technology on small and medium-sized businesses, productivity metrics, how you judge that productivity, some information from Microsoft on the early access program, look at some of the feature comparisons for the different versions of Copilot. There are a number of versions of Copilot and Copilot for different scenarios, how much time you can actually save with Copilot so you can kind of justify the cost of that. We can talk a little bit about data security, next steps, and then Q&A. Going to start with a little video.
Quite hear the audio on this, by the way. There's only me on screen as well, apparently, but it's not the end of the world.
So you couldn't hear the audio on that?
Couldn't, unfortunately, no.
I could.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, good. Right.
Apologies if you couldn't hear the audio on that. My system is set so it should be outputting that. But let me know on the next video, Ian, if that doesn't come through. There was just music there. There was no talking. But a very slick video there. A really nice kind of put together little marketing summary of Copilot. So what is Copilot? Well, it's a system that connects you to an LLM, a large language model, which connects to what's called the Microsoft Graph. Now, the Microsoft Graph is a database that exists within Microsoft 365. It's been there for forever. And what that does is it connects everything in Microsoft 365. It connects all of your messages, so your Teams messages, your email, your data, your SharePoint files, connects everything together, connects people as well. And what Copilot can do when you prompt for it, it can send you a prompt to a large language model, which queries the Microsoft Graph, looks across all of the files, all of the information, Teams messages, emails, and then can pull together those prompts, pull together that information into a response. It's really, really quite clever. So the impact of AI and technology, this is a slide which you may have seen variations of over the years, and it's the kind of the time that it took for various technologies to reach 100 million users. 16 years for mobile phones. I think I first got a mobile phone I think I was quite late to the party on that, around 99. What about you guys?
Pretty much the same.
Yeah, I think 98, 99, I think it was for me as well.
Yeah, you got the little Nokia brick phone. So 16 years to go from 0 to 100 million users. The internet, 7 years. That's a surprisingly long time, but I guess if you think, if you think the web launched in 92, 93, Facebook 4.5 years. What's it? Several billion, I think now. You can see that is almost vertical. ChatGPT, 3 months. So that was launched in late 2022, I believe, and its rise was absolutely meteoric, and it kind of set the world on fire. So we can see there 0 to 3 months, to 0 to 100 million users in just 3 months. So it really, really shows the power of the tool and people's willingness and desire to use such tools. So the cost to small and medium-sized businesses due to the digital skills gap. Digital skills are vital for the success of small and medium-sized businesses. And the lack of such skills can lead to financial loss. Training programs can help with that. Now, this kind of reminds me, if we go back maybe 25, 30 years, small and medium-sized businesses, when they're employing people, if someone didn't have good Excel skills or Outlook skills, or they were, hadn't really used the internet before, it really was a kind of hindrance for that company to be able to take on new talent and expand and grow. And I think we're kind of at that same situation now with AI tools and all of the new employee experience products which are available. So it's kind of critical that you do at least look at and investigate these tools, because you can guarantee that all of your competitors are looking at that, and getting that competitive edge is vital. You also have to consider the fact that with the younger demographic of people joining the workforce, they've all been used to using AI tools, using social media, using TikTok, Instagram, using mobile to access things. They're all used to using these tools in various ways. And if you're not able to offer these kinds of experiences within your organization, you may well struggle in the coming years to recruit the new and upcoming talent that is leaving university. I mean, I've got 2 kids, 2 step kids, aged between 21 and 15, and they use these kinds of tools every day. Just didn't exist when we were younger. So it's really, really critical that you kind of look at these tools, see what you can do to bring in those new people entering the workforce. Any comments on those, guys, while I take a sip of water?
Not specifically. It is. I do find it interesting that it gives the impression of being a tool that can really accelerate someone's ability to use certain applications. Like that, you were saying that's the ability to sort of be able to discover how to do something quite quickly that previously would have taken, a course in Excel, for example, or how to produce a PowerPoint, that kind of thing. So it can kind of really, really accelerate that, I think, within a business.
Yeah, I think using a lot of people struggle with things like the classic one is pivot tables within Excel. I'm quite nifty at pivot tables. I know, Stuart, you are as well. You're a bit of a whiz with them, but a lot of people kind of can't get their head around them. But if you're able to have a table of data in Excel and say, create a pivot table out of this, and it just does it, you're absolutely right. You know, it can save you 5, 10, 15 minutes of trying to Google it and kind of fiddling around. If it just kind of, if Copilot can look at it, set it up for you, you know, you every minute you save is time and money, right?
Absolutely.
100%.
So the AI tools available out there, they do represent an enormous opportunity for small and medium-sized businesses. Just look at some of those statistics. 64% of people have struggled with finding time and energy to get their work done. We all know what that's like. We've got more and more work to do. There's more and more information coming at us all of the time. I think the amount of data that's available on the internet doubles every year or so. It's astronomical amounts of data. And we have more and more information coming at us all the time, emails, Teams messages. Just look at that statistic there, 3 times the amount of time that we spend in Microsoft Teams meeting is tripled in a little over 4 years. Of course, we all know what happened in February 2020, which led a lot of people to work from home, join remote meetings, and that trend has not tailed off in the last 4 years. I can only see that accelerating further. 70% of people would delegate as much information as possible to lessen their workloads, and that's one of the key things that I've kind of discovered about Copilot is treat it like an enthusiastic intern. It's eager to help, but you kind of have to work with it. You have to kind of feed it information in order for it to be productive. And we'll see a little bit more of that as we go through the demo. And yeah, we've got 2 times likelihood of a leader to say AI will provide value by boosting their productivity versus their headcount. So it's not just about automating everything and getting rid of people. There's a quote I saw. I wish I could grant myself credit for this, but it's not my quote. But I saw something on LinkedIn a month or so ago, and it said, no, AI won't replace you and it won't take your job, but someone who knows how to use it effectively will. It's also the fact that your competitors are probably using AI tools and they may have the advantage over you. So it's definitely worth you investigating these tools. So about productivity, and this is I love that graphic, by the way, Ian. Tell us a little bit about this. I know this is you. It's got you written all over it. So just tell the people listening kind of what you did to generate this. You're the whiz at this. You're brilliant at this.
Yeah. So yeah, using Microsoft Designer, it's a great AI tool for producing imagery. But the absolute key thing with it is getting the command, the prompt right, as it is in Copilot, because otherwise you end up some real random stuff. So I put in there, how does a business judge productivity using 3D render, using a particular color scheme, and you get a series of images back, and then you can pick and choose. But that's just one element of Microsoft AI, and it's amazing. I use it every day, day in, day out. We use that for LinkedIn posts, all kinds of stuff. So whereas before you search through Google Images and then find stuff that you can't use anyway, this is actually a great tool, and they're all kind of individual images that you get back that you can use. So yeah, I love it.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, so keep an eye on our LinkedIn posts. A lot of these kind of images that you'll see, that's Ian doing his little wizardry in the background there. So productivity is measured in different ways by different businesses. It can include things like sales, revenue, customer satisfaction, and those productivity metrics, I'm sure you're all tracking them, but they can be used to identify areas for improvement and track those over time. Just some quotes here from a few larger organizations who are using some of these apps. That one in the middle there is the one that really stands out, and it is, for me and for a lot of people, it is one of the standout features of Copilot, and that is being able to keep up on top of your meeting notes. So as Mahesh there from DLT App says, he's no longer spending so much time consolidating the meeting notes because Copilot does it for him. He's saving 10 minutes of time with each meeting. Now, I really get this, and this is fantastic for me because often when I'm consulting with customers, I will record the call. I record the call for a couple of reasons. Is because I don't want to take notes during the call, because if I'm taking notes, I'm not listening and I'm not asking effective questions, and that's really important as a consultant. Following the call, previously, and the amount of times I've done this is to kind of dig out the transcript, watch the recording, kind of pick it all out manually. You know, if I've done a program of work with one particular customer, maybe had 6 1-hour meetings, it can easily take me an hour and a half to kind of go through all of that and consolidate it. The amount of time I could have saved over the years if I'd have Copilot, when I can just say, produce a summary for me, and it within literally 30 seconds, it talks about what we've discussed, what the action points are, who's responsible for them. It doesn't get everything right. I will be completely open and honest about that, but it's such a time saver. You know, I'm able to identify key trends, and it's smart enough as well to ignore all of the kind of general chit chat about the weather at the beginning of the meeting as well. So it really does get down. It understands the context of the meeting and is really able to pick out the key points. So you would have seen, you've probably seen emails in your personal life. There are various iterations of Copilot. So we've got Copilot, Copilot Pro, Copilot for organizations, Copilot for Microsoft 365. So if you're in your personal life, you're using any kind of Microsoft service, you can go to Bing. It used to be called Bing Chat Enterprise, or just Bing Chat within the Bing search engine. That does have Copilot capabilities. So if you're used to going to Google, just try going to Bing and doing a search, and a little Copilot window will pop up and it will intelligently put some things in. That's available to everyone, but obviously has limited capabilities. For individuals, so this is not for people on the call, but if you've got the Microsoft 365 kind of personal or family plan, there is a Copilot Pro which will connect Copilot up to Outlook, Word, Excel, all of the usual applications for you. Copilot here for organizations, again, it's like Copilot for individuals, and that it's got that web grounding, but it does have some extra data protection in and around it. And then we come to Copilot for Microsoft 365, which gives you the full suite of connectivity into your Office apps, including Teams, graph grounding, which means effectively what it will do is it will keep all of the data within the Microsoft 365 service boundaries, so you're not, data isn't leaking out onto the internet. I know a few of you had asked questions ahead of the webinar about data breaches and security. There is a slide on that a little later on, but that is all kind of taken care of with Copilot for Microsoft 365. And you can, if you're really willing to get into it, you can customize it and build your own Copilots as well with Copilot Studio. It's something that I'm actively looking at the moment. We've got a price there that is set. There is a dollar pricing from Microsoft. On the next slide, we'll see the UK pricing. Ian, would you like to talk a little bit about this slide?
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth pointing out that this Copilot license for your users is an annual commitment. Although, it's broken down into a monthly cost there, it is an annual commitment. So you can't just sign up for a month and then go, I'm not really using this, I'm not really enjoying it anymore. It is an annual commitment. And Mark, there's probably a good reason for that, isn't there, really?
Well, there's a couple of good reasons for it. One being NVIDIA's AI chips are quite expensive. Microsoft has to, but NVIDIA, my wife was telling me this morning, because she's a financial journalist, so NVIDIA are releasing their results today, so she's keeping a close eye on those. Nvidia are doing very, very well these days, but their chips cost money, and Microsoft must be buying them by the truckload. They're expensive, so that's one of the reasons why that is that annual commitment. Microsoft, needs that capital in order to purchase the AI chips. The other reason is more around getting used to Copilot. Like you said, Ian, if you purchased a license for Visio, for instance, that's an add-on product you can build into your M365. You might use it for a month, say, oh, actually, I don't think this is for me. I don't need Visio. I can do my diagrams in PowerPoint or whatever. Then you can kind of just drop that license. You can do that on a month-to-month basis. Copilot does take a little while to get used to. And as I said earlier, it's like an enthusiastic intern. It wants to help, but you have to feed it the information. It also takes time, like an intern, for it to learn about you, learn about your organization, learn about the people who you work with, the documents that you work on, that they work on. So having that annual commitment does mean that after a month, you can say, well, it hasn't really worked for me, and then you ditch it. So having a full year that you've actually paid for does give you that opportunity to really make the best out of it. It is worth noting as well that the license is portable. So if you purchase that license and then you think, actually, I don't think this is for me, but one of my colleagues might use it, it can be picked up and it can be moved to one of your colleagues. So it's not like you've paid for your own license and after a month you decide for whatever reason that it's not for you and you've spent that £300. You can kind of pass that around, but do be aware that it does take a little bit of time to get used to it. I think, Stuart, so you and I have done quite a bit of extensive testing. I think it took me a couple of weeks just to kind of get my head around it, because you kind of presented with it, and even though I am technical, looking at it and learning to craft the right questions and what to do with it takes practice.
Yeah, I would say for me, it delivered like instant value within the first couple of weeks in terms of the one that always resonates with everyone is the meeting notes, or what Mark was saying there. I was doing the same thing. I was recording meetings, watching them back, and then going back and making notes on the recording. So that if it's an hour meeting, that's an extra hour after every meeting and just collating the notes from the meeting to then convey that to anyone else who needs to know them, and for me to write my to-do list. So the impact of that was instant. But I would say it took probably sort of another couple of months before I started to learn just a few, like how to structure the requests that I give it when I ask it to do something, whether that's asking it to recap certain meeting notes or to pull information from a Word document to create a PowerPoint from it. All of those kind of things, you start to, and every time you learn one extra thing that it can do and you learn how to do it effectively, it then gives you an idea of sort of 2 or 3 other things that it can do, and then you work out how to do that. So after kind of 3 or 4 months, you really start to sort of get a feel for it. And it is very, a way I like to think about it is, most of us now, that there's always stuff we don't know how to do, even if we're an experienced Word user or Excel user, PowerPoint user. There's always things where either you don't know how to do it or you've forgotten how to do it because you haven't done it for so long. And so your first step is you'll go to Google and you go, how do I create this pivot table with this data? How do I create this VLOOKUP to give me that information from that other table? Or Excel examples, a little bit geeky, but you'd go to Google, find out how to do that, and then you'd go back to Excel and then try and follow the commands in Google. Like that in itself is probably a half-hour process. If you imagine that Copilot built in, like baked into the application, cuts all of that process out. You instead, you just select the data you want, you ask Copilot the thing that you would have asked Google, but you work out sort of the better ways to ask it as you go, and it then goes, it works out what it is that you want to do and then applies that instantly. And then you start to get, it starts to allow you to interrogate data, allow you to summarize information from large documents, allows you to throw together slides in a PowerPoint that you can then convey information to other people much, much quicker. So it's all about you. You've still got to produce the information. It's all your content. It's all your business IP. But the Copilot helps you deliver that information, or to summarize that information, or collate that information into a more effective way, much, much quicker.
Yeah, using it like the intern, right? write up my meeting
Exactly.
notes for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Put all this together into a Word document, and then once you've got all that, I'll review it and I'll have a look, and then I'd like you to create a PowerPoint deck from that. Right, it's farming that all out to AI, so you can focus on more important things. Right, yeah, having to Google how to sort a pivot table or group data isn't always the best use of your time. If you can get it done like that, you can focus on actually what's important, which is analyzing the data and making an important decision based upon that data, rather than just the kind of legwork of actually doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Ian, do we have any questions in the chat so far before I move on to
actually, the questions have been around the pricing, so I've been able to answer them in the chat, and it's around was it a one-off payment, annual commitment, which I think we've explained. If anybody else has got any further questions, just drop them in the chat.
Yeah, drop them in as we go along, and Ian will be monitoring, and I will kind of pause as we go along. So just looking at this slide, how much time do you spend across, and we have covered some of this, taking notes and scheduling follow-ups and meeting? If you have 4 to 5 hours of Teams meetings a week, and you're probably thinking 4 to 5 hours, I've probably got 8 to 15 or something like that. But if you spend 4 to 5 hours in Teams meeting, you could easily spend 45 minutes to an hour putting those notes together, saving an hour a week. All of that builds up. As Stuart said, Excel is a great example. Excel is a fantastic tool. I'm, despite having used it for 25, 26 years, I'm still not that great at Excel. Like Stuart said, I've always been guilty in the past. I know I can do this, so I go off to Google, and how do I do this in Excel? And I'll sit there and I'll kind of, oh, right, okay, that's the formula, and I work it out. If I can just get Copilot to do it, it'll save me a lot of time. Your inbox, particularly when you've been away, you've been on leave for a couple of days, a week, 2 weeks, coming back, and you've got this ocean of email that you kind of have to wade through. How long does that typically take you? If you're slick, if you've been on a 2-week holiday and you come back, if you can get through all of your inbox in 2 to 3 hours, I'm impressed. When you come back, Copilot is, and we will see a little demo on that a little later. Copilot can kind of dig through that and then tell you what's important about that. Trying to find documents, reading and summarizing documents, and drafting documents. Now, drafting documents in particular is something that I really struggle with, because I know what I want to write, and I'll open up Word and I'm faced with a blank piece of paper, and I hate that. And I look at it and I'll stare at it and I'll think, what am I going to write? What am I going to write? If I can use Copilot to say, I want to create a draft sales proposal based on this, and I can actually reference a document. So what I might have done is had a Teams meeting that I've recorded, I've collated all of the notes, and I can say to Copilot, based on this meeting, put together a sales proposal on what was discussed with this customer, and it'll analyze the meeting, it'll analyze the document. I can also say, look at this meeting, but reference this sales proposal I've created previously, and it'll kind of look at the two together and it'll match them together and produce a document. It gives me a really good way to start that document, rather than me just staring blankly at it going, what am I going to write? What am I going to write? I find that would take, if a document would take me an hour to write, getting Copilot to draft it for me can easily save me 15 to 20 minutes. And as Stuart said, once I've got my document, if I want to create a PowerPoint from that, it's a case of opening PowerPoint, say, create me a PowerPoint deck based on this document, and it'll put out the key points, it'll format it for me. It even does a pretty good job of finding appropriate images and putting them in there. Not quite as good as the amazing stuff that Ian does, but it will find appropriate images and it will insert them. And of course, it gives me a good place to start that I can kind of build on. Right. So this is around the return on your investment around Copilot. So based on an employee earning £70,000 a year, with their employees' their time been worth around £30 an hour, you can see that they're 2 hours saved a month is 124% return on your investment. 2.5 hours is 180% return on your investment. You can see quite quickly for that £300 a year, £30 a month, that you don't have to save a lot of time in order for you to really see the benefits of the investment that you've made in Copilot.
Mark,
yes,
I have a question from Katie. She's asked if they sign up for Copilot and have difficulties to learn by themselves, would Igloo be able to provide training and support them? Great question.
Great question. Short answer is yes. Slightly longer answer is we've got something coming up a little later, but great question, Katie. Yeah, thank you. You're absolutely right. You look at it like we kind of looked at it, and Stuart and I sat there and went, right, what do we do with this thing? And we kind of look at it, and we've kind of learned as we've gone along. And we've talked to other people, we've talked to partners. Obviously, we talked to Microsoft. Been presented with this, and then learning from us, learning from your colleagues is absolutely vital. So yes, there is an offering there where we can help and support you with that and give you the tools to work together and learn from each other as well, not just from us.
I've got a few more questions, but we'll come to them in a minute. I'll let you carry on for now, and I'll interrupt you again.
Yeah, thanks, Ian.
Cheers.
So from Microsoft's early access program results, you can see here. Now, these are the most efficient Copilot users, those people who really embraced it, got the tool, went for it. They saved 10 hours per month. So when we looked at the previous slide, with 2.5 was an 180% return on your investment, saving 10 hours per month. That's a full working day, 1.25 working days, something like that. That they're able to save in a month and do something more productive with it. And there is a link there. We will be sending the deck out for this later. There's a link there to that information. So early findings from Microsoft's Access program. You can see the stats here. 12.2% increase in the time it took to complete a particular task. I bet that's a lot more if you looked at things like Excel. 25% decrease in the time spent on particular tasks, 12.5% increase in the number of subtasks completed, and a 40% increase in quality. Quality's a difficult one to kind of judge and measure, but there is a link in there that lets you read the information on where that data has come from. So some of the things that Copilot can help you with is increasing employee satisfaction and well-being, improving quality of work, and reducing the digital debt. So in terms of employee satisfaction and well-being, I did talk a little bit about this earlier, about perhaps the younger workforce joining your organization. They're used to using these kinds of tools. The satisfaction that I've had as an old timer, I'm nearly 50 years old, having been in this industry for a long time and spent a lot of time on a computer, the satisfaction I get, and I know Stuart Potter's the same, when you can just say, how can I do this? Do this for me, and it'll just do it, and I'll have a draft document I can do something with, or having it pull out of the meeting. It just means I don't have to do that grunt work. Having it done for me is of enormous benefit. Adding into that as well, other aspects of employee experience around being able to access things on mobile, having your data all structured and organized, having automation in place, they all kind of add up to making your organization a great place to work. And improving the quality of the work as well, being able to get Copilot to draft a document, highlight some text and say, can you reword this? I'd like to make this a little more formal, a little less formal, and it's able to kind of edit that on the fly and present me with different options. I can choose whether or not to accept them. I can flip through, I can ask it to try again, but it really does help with I found it helps with the quality of the work. Have you used those tools quite a lot, Stuart, to kind of really get yourself a digital editor on your documents?
Yeah, very much. I've used it to create either create like a paragraph or a couple of paragraphs of information based on some sort of bullet points if I sort of put facts in, but I've also used it to summarize information into sort of bullet points. If I've got a page, I tend to ramble and write a lot of notes, and then I've sort of highlight information or point it at a Word document where you've got a rambling set of notes and ask it to kind of summarize that, and just pull things out, compress 4 sentences into 2 that are much more concise if it makes more sense. Yeah, extremely useful.
Excellent. Okay, so just looking at the business value, we'll kind of dig through into this next slide. It is around the overall value of Copilot, the value by the different types of tasks that you're doing, and by your role and your function. This is a very busy slide. So Ian and I looked at this and we were like, there's a lot of information here. We just kind of like to pick things out. I think, Ian, we decided on effective team meetings, right? That's one of the most, that's one of the most effective things that I've certainly found. Content writing is very good. Excel is excellent as well. But you can look at as well by your role or your function. So you could look at salespeople. Does it make them more effective in that when they're writing sales proposals? Ian, you do this kind of stuff all the time. Do you think that's kind of helped you to get those kinds of documents produced more quickly so you can actually focus on actually talking to customers rather than sat there and word writing?
100%, yeah.
Certainly we know your images are amazing, so
the time saving element is really key. Time is money, literally. But actually, I think when you're putting together proposals or any document, and this comes down to even marketing content, things like that, writer's block is a big deal. And actually having something helping hand to help you along the way, creating content, putting text together, rather than you just having to sit there and think about it, is just a wonderful thing. And do you know what? I think we mentioned Teams meetings before. For us, what we've discovered, certainly internally using it for the last couple of months or so, is that although you've got an annual commitment of $296 per user, it's worth that money alone just for the Teams meeting summarization and the action points and the notes. We're all in Teams meetings all the time, whether we like it or not, and generally they can go on a bit. And just that functionality alone is that's worth the license in itself. So yeah, 100%. And actually, I've got a question on that, Mark, which is related to it. So Zoe has asked if does a meeting have to be recorded in order for Copilot to produce a summary, or is it able to summarize live content?
The meeting needs to be transcribed. So you can have recording and transcription, or just transcription. So yeah, it does need something to kind of look at. So yeah, you will need recording and or transcription turned on. You can either do that manually in a meeting, or you can, of course, when you set up a meeting, you can tell it to record automatically. So yeah, Copilot does need that in order to function. But good question.
And I found that I set all my meetings to record automatically now, just for that reason.
It's become a habit, right?
Yeah.
And a great question from Angus as well. So how trustworthy have you found the outputs in general? Appreciate this depends on the prompts. But yeah, is there kind of any issues with the output that you get?
It's a very, very good question, Angus. For the most part, it's good. Sometimes it will. I've had the odd error, I'll be completely honest. I've asked it a question and just said, I can't do that right now. And oh, okay. And then I'll ask it again 2 minutes later and it'll do it. So you will get the odd glitch. But the old adage of rubbish in, rubbish out really, really does apply. So learning how to craft effective prompts, telling it not only where to look, but what you expect, perhaps who the audience is, and what your expectations are, even around formatting, is key. Same when you come out of a Teams meeting. So internally, when we have a team meeting, there might be 6 or 7 of us. The meeting might go on for an hour. There's a lot of people talking backwards and forwards. When you generate the notes at the end, you do have to scan them, because sometimes it will get the wrong end of the stick, and it will say, Ian and Mark said they do this, and I look at it and go, I never agreed to that. It was Ian and Stuart. So something's it. But with a lot of people talking, you know, it does miss things, but
it does a great job.
Yeah, it does a great job, and just being able to get that, and I can send out and go, actually, it wasn't Ian, Mark, it was Ian and Stuart, and it's not me avoiding work. You know, it's just saying, no, Stuart said he'd do this. But overall, it's good. When you copy information from Copilot at the end of a meeting, it does say this is AI generated. Check for accuracy. Yes, Stuart.
Yeah, there are a couple of tips on that, things you can do. I've started, I don't know if people having meetings with me spot this, but I've started in meetings prompting, like at the end of it, if we have a conversation that results in a decision for somebody to do something, I'll kind of summarize that little part of the conversation by saying, great, okay, so what we need to do there is the action from that is, Ian, you're going to go away and find that out. And then I'll say that because I know Copilot's going to pick that up, and it just has a tendency to make things more accurate. As much as Mark's saying, it's about, rubbish in, rubbish out. If you put good data in, you'll get good information out. Now, Copilot, like any, all the AIs out there look at all of the internet. Copilot looks at all of the internet and all of your data. Now, while this is often a worry, is it won't pull back information and present it to the person asking the question if that person doesn't have permission to see it. So if that person asks a question about documents that they don't have permission to access, then Copilot won't give them back information from those documents. But otherwise, it looks at everything. Now, Copilot doesn't know what's accurate and what isn't. So if looking at the internet, there's 50 pages on a particular subject and only 2 of them are accurate, it doesn't know which 2 those are. So it really helps to point it at information that you know is correct. So where you get the most value is where you go, I've got this information, I know that's good. What I want is a summary of that, or what I want is a different way of formatting that information, or I want a bunch of questions based on this information. So I've used it recently. I created a PowerPoint and a document to run a training course internally with our team. And then I used Copilot to create a series of questions for me based on that information, series of multi-choice questions to then quiz the team after the course. And that's also, those questions were entirely based on the information I've given it. So if you point it at accurate information, you get good information out. But everything is about, you need to sense check it. So you need to quickly look through what it gives you back and go, yeah, I'm happy with all of that. Don't trust it immediately. In the same way that you wouldn't trust a new intern immediately, to use Mark's analogy. And as Ian was saying earlier as well, it's about having a starting point. It's about not being given a blank page. Writer's block comes from just looking at a blank page and not knowing where to go. So if you're trying to produce a document or a PowerPoint presentation and you go, I just don't know where to start, Copilot can give you the starting point, and from there it's surprising how much you go, okay, yeah, no, that's good, but actually I want to say it this way, and then you can reorder things or add a little bit.
I've got 2 really good questions, actually. They kind of relate to each other. So when we're talking about Teams meetings and taking notes and recognizing people, so does Teams differentiate between people's voices when making notes? And if so, does it have learning capability to recognize people in regular meetings? That's the first question.
No, so not exactly.
Not quite. Yeah.
No, not exactly. But so if you've ever turned on recording or looked at the transcript of a Teams meeting, forgetting Copilot, it does know who's talking because it knows from which person that audio input is coming. So I'm in a meeting with Stuart, it knows when I'm talking because it knows that voice is coming from my feed. It knows when it's coming from Stuart. So it is able to identify people that way. And then it's able to say, well, Mark said this and Stuart said this and Ian said this. It's not actually learning the voice. It's just kind of knowing where the voice came from based on the feed into the Teams meeting. So if you're logged into the Teams meeting as Mark, it will say Mark. If I was logged in as marketing meeting room, for instance, it would say marketing meeting room said this, unless I was specifically referenced and Stuart said, oh, Mark you said you would do this, then Copilot would pick it up. So it's not actually picking up on your voice, it's based on the attendees within the meeting. But good question.
What it's not clever enough to do yet is sort of sit 5 people in a room and put a laptop on in the corner to record the Teams meeting. It won't be able to pick up who's who within that meeting. So we're not there yet. Might well be. Who knows? Could be 3 years. Could be 3 months. We don't know. But
that kind of relates to Kate asked the question yeah, similar vein really. So regarding the meeting summaries, does the meeting have to be in Teams, or could Copilot record, transcribe and summarize an in-person meeting? I know we've been asked this question in the last week or so as well. So
yeah, you need to be in Teams.
Yeah.
It could, you could
one
technically
person
have
at
it
least
join.
needs to be in Teams.
Yeah, and it could, so it could transcribe it, but it's going to struggle with knowing who said what. But you'd get a transcription of the
you'd
meeting.
get something, but the quality wouldn't be as good. Yeah, I am going to kind of move through some of the slides. I've got a few videos. There's some things I want to show, and we've got 10 minutes left, so I am going to kind of go through. The slide deck will be sent out. There's this slide will just tells you about the depending which department you're in, the value you can actually get from using Copilot. And there are some survey results there. I'm not going to go through these in detail. They will be available. Just there, it says, how much is Copilot worth to users? 77, this is a really famous statistic that Microsoft have kind of moved around. 77 would choose it over a free lunch. 77 wouldn't want to go back to working. Within 2 or 3 days of me getting Copilot, the first thing that had me like everyone was the Teams meetings. And I kind of said, if I don't get this renewed in a year's time, I'm going to be very, very upset. I wouldn't like to now operate without it there in the background to help me. And I think pretty much everyone there on the survey agreed. There's a couple of videos. This is a 4-minute long video. I'm only going to show around the first minute or so. You will get the picture, but it will be in the deck. And Ian, let me know if you don't hear the volume on this.
Yeah, I think everybody could hear apart from me last time, so I think we're fine.
Introducing Microsoft 365 Chat, a powerful new capability in Microsoft 365 to solve your most complex problems at work. Let's say you're a marketer at a national chain of home improvement stores, and you need to get the latest on the store opening. You start your day with Copilot, asking what's hot in your inbox today. It does some thinking and gives you an overview of the most pressing items. Great. Looks like the new store opening plans could use your attention. Let's dive in deeper there. Copilot combs through all your recent emails, chats, documents, and meetings, whether you attended them or not, to get you up to speed in moments. It didn't just summarize a single document. It knew what sources to pull from and what information to extract from each. Next, you need to do some market research. Let's say you want some details on square footage and the proximity of competitors to your new location. M365 Chat scours the web, and within seconds, it finds everything you're looking for. And it includes references, so you can easily fact-check the results. You're curious, how does this stack up against the other stores you opened in the past year? Copilot figures out which stores you mean, crunches the numbers, and gives you the answer. Next on your to-do list, finalize the date and speaker for the opening event. You missed the last meeting, and this might have come up in the conversation. Copilot's got you covered, getting you up to speed in seconds. Looks like it was a dynamic.
I'm not going to play all of that video, but it really is worth watching. Watching all of it when you receive the deck. And that's a really good example of just kind of leaping from one thing to another. Say, right, starting in your inbox. Oh, okay, right. Look at this document. Look at this meeting. What do I need to do? Getting it to kind of put some data and kind of mash things together for you, and then kind of moving from perhaps Word into Excel and then into PowerPoint. Next one is Copilot in Outlook. There's some duplication between this and the next one, so I will kind of let you watch this one at your leisure, but the next one is around Teams, which is definitely worth watching.
Imagine you have an appointment that conflicts with your weekly business review. What if you could do both? With Copilot, you can opt to follow a meeting. After the meeting ends, Copilot will summarize what you missed. You'll get a notification in Teams when the recap is ready. This recap will highlight content that was shared, summarize notes, and any action items for you or others whose names were mentioned. You see that one of your customers was discussed, and you want to learn more. You can ask Copilot clarifying questions. and it provides a detailed response. It can tell you why a certain decision was made and gives you helpful context. You can even ask Copilot what other solutions were considered. And it provides citations from the transcript, so you can see where Copilot drew these conclusions. It's a huge time saver. So that was pretty cool. But the real magic of Copilot happens during a live meeting. Let's say you're in a meeting with your team. You can ask Copilot to summarize the meeting so far. You can see how it summarizes who said what points were made, and it's really capturing the spirit of the discussion. And
right. Well,
imagine
let's start again. That's a really interesting example, and that exact scenario happened to me a few weeks ago. Stuart and I were due to be on a meeting together with a customer. I was unable to make it. Stuart went ahead. But because Copilot knew I was invited, I was then able to kind of go into the meeting and say, catch me up on what happened. And it just produced a whole list of notes about what Stuart said, what the customer said, what the actions were. Super, super helpful. I've got a short video here on Copilot in Word. Love this one.
when you've written a paragraph in shorthand, you can highlight it and click Rewrite. Copilot then offers several alternate options to choose from that are all written professionally. And it can translate wordy or complex paragraphs into digestible visualized tables. You can even use Copilot to add a column with extra data, which it can complete automatically. Copilot also makes you the expert on any document. Simply ask a question about the content, and Copilot will provide a concise response.
Yeah, that's a great one. There is a video in Excel. I'm not going to go through that one, but that is definitely worth a watch for those of you who are interested in that. Next up, we've got a video I recorded. So to go back to the question earlier around training and how we can help and support you, I recorded this video earlier in the week, which I'm going to play and I'll explain as I go along. So this is our own internal Teams environment. Over on the left-hand side there, I've got my Copilot Center of Excellence team. That's a team we use internally to, so all of our Copilot users can kind of work together and share ideas and share prompts. You can see there's been an announcement. I posted a new prompt that's been created, that's been shared with other people within the team. Go to my general channel and I have an app called Prompt Buddy with that cute little koala icon. And within there are prompts for various apps and various scenarios. You can see we've got a list there for different departments, HR, IT. I've got prompts there for Excel. There's Word there for PowerPoint. But here's the one that I set up. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to copy that prompt. Other people can do the same. We can share it. I can go to Copilot directly within Teams. Don't need to go to the browser. And then I've typed in my prompt. I'm just going to pause the video there. So this is where I had to be very, very specific with what I wanted Copilot to do. So I said, summarize my mails, Teams messages, and channel messages from the last workday. List those action items in a dedicated column, suggest follow-ups if possible in a dedicated column. I've even told it what I want the table to look like. So the type, so mail, Teams, channel, the topic, summarization, and then an action and follow-up. If I've been directly mentioned, make the font of the topic bold. So paste that into Copilot. I use this all the time. And it's going to think about it, and it starts generating the table on the fly. There we go, starts building up my table. And I've shortened that sequence there because I've blanked out individuals and company names there. But there from that email, it said, you know, where I received the, whether it was a mail message, whether it came in Teams, who was responsible. Ian and I had a conversation about a quote. I can see there's a mail come in about about access to SharePoint sites. So that is really, really useful. Imagine if you'd been on leave for a few days or a week or 2 weeks, you could come back to Copilot and say, catch me up. What do I need to focus on that's most important? Right. Next one, I did have a demo lined up, but we are running out of time. I'd be happy to show that, and that's using Copilot to kind of dig through a large PDF document and ask questions. I'd be happy to kind of show this in a separate call if anyone is interested. Data security, people did ask about this. So as I said earlier, and Stuart alluded to, Copilot connects you to a large language model, which connects to the Microsoft Graph, which connects to all of the data that sits within Microsoft 365. Copilot is fully compliant with all of Microsoft's security and compliance, such as GDPR, the EU data boundary. And it's important to note that prompts, responses, and any data accessed through Graph aren't trained to use to train LLMs. So your data is never used to train that LLM and used by another customer. It's completely isolated within your tenant. Big point there in red. It's very important that you're using the permission models that are available to you within Microsoft 365, such as within SharePoint, to make sure that your content is secured to the appropriate users and groups. So Copilot does have the data to surface data from anywhere across your tenant. Are your SharePoint permissions fully tuned? Do you know who can access what? Has something been overshared internally, externally? Do you know to whom and who did that? Could someone inadvertently access sensitive data? Security through obscurity is no longer valid, particularly with search and especially with Copilot. It might be able to find that particular spreadsheet that might show someone's salary information. That's an extreme case, I know, but it's absolutely critical that everyone can, just have access to the data that they need to do their job, because Copilot may well find it. So just to follow up on the question earlier, yes, we do have a product offering around Copilot. So that starts off with a readiness review, which is a scan of your SharePoint environment to find any sharing links and any permissions by site, so we can understand who has access to what. And off the back of that, there is a report which outlines any remediation steps and recommended best practices to secure your data. We will help with the implementation of the Copilot licenses. We will offer training, and that does include the Prompt Buddy installation, configuration, and any product updates. There's a subscription required. Happy to talk about that on separate calls with anyone who's interested. And we do have a training portal as well, which is subscription based, but Copilot specific content can be added to your training portal along with the other information that is available in there, such as how to perform certain functions within Teams, OneDrive, and within your own employee experience if you do have one. And if you are interested in taking the next step, perhaps you're not using perhaps not all of your data is in SharePoint, or you're not really sure that your data management and automation is as optimum as it can be, we do have a whole suite of employee experience products that we're happy to talk about. And there's just a few screenshots there. I'm always happy to talk about these, as Ian and Stuart will attest.
Yeah. It's probably worth pointing out. I've got a couple of questions. If people have got time just to stay on while we answer them, that'd be great. And I think we've kind of touched on it a little bit there, Mark, which is a great question by Chris, which is, do you have any data protection security concerns using Copilot over and above Microsoft 365?
Do I have any concerns? No. Microsoft have taken the privacy and security implications of this very, very seriously. They've kind of got it covered in terms of it being within the limits of your tenant and even within geographical limits as well. So that there is the EU data boundary. There's specific rules within Germany. I believe Microsoft take care of that for the German market as well. The question is, do your users have access to something that they shouldn't? And that is a kind of separate question. The security around the way that Microsoft handles it, the way that the LLM accesses data is all covered. It's ensuring that all of your data is secured to those who need it is the important one there.
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember is Copilot itself, while it's a global Microsoft platform, it connects separately to everybody's Office 365 tenancy. So your Copilot instance doesn't take your data out of your Microsoft 365 tenancy. So nothing ever leaves. And Copilot can see all data in your tenancy, but the user asking Copilot questions can only see the data they've got permission to access. So that does allude to what Mark was saying there. If you've got really good data security policy across your organization and appropriate permissions set to make sure that users can only see the stuff they're supposed to see, then you're golden. If you've not had a great practice of data protection within your organization, some people use very traditional methods of sort of security by obscurity. So they hide folders and assume people don't ever go and get them. The more powerful search gets, even without Copilot, the more risky that kind of approach is. But part of that data sort of Copilot readiness review that we can do is about checking what sort of data security you've got in place, about how open or closed your data environment is. So that's the kind of thing that we would go through with you as part of that.
Yeah. Ian, next steps. We're a little bit over. We
yeah. Apologies for that, everybody. So next steps are I will personally send you a link, a QR code. If you could then complete some information for me, just a few lines of information. We'll then be in touch to discuss next steps and set up a meeting with you so you can find out more. And we'll take from there, really.
And we will send out the link to the recording and the PowerPoint deck as well, so you can watch all of those videos.
All of those videos,
at your leisure.
Yeah.
Are there any final questions before we call it, Ian?
I think we're all good. Yeah, Trevor, that's where the short help videos, obviously they'll be in the slide deck that we send out.
Yeah,
so
they're all in there.
Yeah.
And we're always happy, of course, complete the next steps if you'd like to find out more. We're always happy to talk about this stuff. Okay, I'm going to end that there. Thank you very much for your time, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mark. Cheers.